Hello, I'm Amanda Corbett and I'm the creator behind Starlight Stitching Co. Thank you very much for buying my pattern and helping me support my family. I really truly appreciate it. Today I'm going to show you how to make a Patchwork Project Bag, and the pattern is for 3 different sizes. Today in the tutorial I'm going to show you how to make the smallest version, but the steps are exactly the same for the medium and the large version. The only difference is the size of the fabric pieces and how many squares you have to lay out. And there's also an optional handle that you can add. This is in the PDF instructions but not included in the video, but it's simple enough, I'm sure that you can handle it. So let's get started. To get started, what you'll need are your pieces of soft and stable and your lining fabric, both cut to the size indicated on the pattern, your zipper, and make sure your zipper is at least 2 inches longer than your project bag is wide. That way your zipper pull can stay all the way out of the way while you're sewing. Your 2.5 inch squares, a marking tool to mark your quilting lines, a 1/4 inch quilting foot, and a zipper foot. That is what you need to get started. Now when I'm making a project bag, I like to use charm packs. They are the perfect size. You can take 5 or 6 of them off of the stack, line up the edge of a quilting ruler with a 2.5 inch line, cut down the center, then rotate, line the 2.5 inch mark up with the bottom edge, and cut down the center, and then you'll have 4 2.5 inch squares for each print in a charm pack. And usually one charm pack can get either 1 medium and 1 small project bag, or 1 large project bag and a matching cross-stitch clutch, or a medium-sized project bag and a matching cross-stitch clutch. So I like to use all of the squares to make matching sets and have my project bags and my clutches match. Or you could use a couple mini charm packs, as long as you have the number of squares needed. Now today I'm going to show you how to make the small project bag, but the steps are exactly the same for the medium and the large bags. The only difference is the number of squares that you have to lay out. Now I've got all of my squares laid out in the order that I want them to be in. For my outside front top, I need 1 row of 5 squares. For my outside front bottom, I need 3 rows of 5 squares, and I'm going to sew those together. Alright, now I've got my strip sets sewn together. I am going to press them in opposite directions so they will all nest. So what I mean by that is I'm going to take my hot iron, and the first row I will press the seams all going to the left. Okay. And the next one, we'll turn it around because I'm not left-handed. Press the seams and then flip it back around. So this set of seams is heading that direction, this set of seams is heading this direction. And when you put them together, hopefully you can see that. When you put them together, they'll just want to lock in together at that point, and it'll help keep your seams really nicely aligned. So do the same with these bottom two. You could also press it from the back side if you want to. Okay. Next, I'm going to start pinning my lower rows together. My front top is already done. I don't need to do anything else to it. But the bottom, I will need to sew those rows together. So I'm going to nest my seams and then just put a pin right in that seam. And we're going to do that all the way down the strip. Then pin the ends, and we're going to take this to the sewing machine and sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance along this edge. Alright, now I'm going to press this seam open, and that'll just make it less bulky. You won't feel those ridges as much in your project bag. Okay, now I'm going to pin this piece to this piece and sew those together the exact same way. Alright, now my front top and front bottom are done. So next I'm going to lay out my squares for my back. And for that, I need 4 rows of 5 squares for the small bag version. Again, you'll want to reference the pattern for how many squares you need, depending on the size of bag that you're making. I've got my squares all laid out. Now I'm going to sew them together just like I did before. Okay, I've got my strips all sewn together, so now I'm just going to press. So just like before, I've pressed the seams on the top row this direction, the seams on the second row to the right, the seams on the third row to the left, and the seams on the bottom row to the right, so they nest together just like before. And now I'm going to pin the rows together, starting with the top two. And now I'm going to pin together the bottom two. I'm all pinned. Now, back to the sewing machine. Now we will press these seams open. And I am using just a dry iron on the cotton setting because I'm using 100% cotton quilting fabric. Mostly just because I'm too lazy to refill the water canister to use steam. But whether or not you use steam, that is entirely up to you. You do what works best for you. Okay. Now I'm going to pin the top to the bottom. And we'll take that to the sewing machine to sew. Now I've got my back, my front bottom, and my front top. I am ready for the next step. So next, we're going to lay our patchwork on top of our soft and stable. So I've got the back pieces of the patchwork and the back piece of the soft and stable. And I'm just laying them together. You will want to either clip them together with binding clips, which works well for small pieces like this one, or if you're doing the large bag, you may want to use some of the basting pins, which are curved safety pins that are meant for quilting. I don't know if can you see that, the curve in there? It makes it easier to get it through the fabric. But you just want to hold the layers together and keep them from shifting while you're doing your quilting stitches. Now, before you clip it or safety pin it, you will want to mark your quilting lines. And you can quilt it in whatever pattern is desired. You're just trying to hold all these layers together. So I am just going to stitch 1/4 of an inch on either side of the seam lines, both vertically and horizontally, and I'm just going to do that for all of my pieces for something quick and easy. But if you want, you could go diagonal both directions, or diagonal across the blocks in one direction, or just random straight lines, or this would be a fun chance to test out some of your decorative stitches on your sewing machine. Maybe do some rows of different decorative stitches, whatever your heart desires. Alright, now I'm ready to go back to the sewing machine and do my quilting lines. Just like when working on a quilt, you want to start your quilting lines in the middle and work your way out to the edges. That way, if you have any puckers or loose areas, that works its way out towards the edge instead of meeting up in the middle and causing a wrinkle in the middle. Now I have all of my pieces quilted and ready to go. My front bottom, my front top, and my back. So next, I'm going to take my zipper and my front bottom. I'm going to lay my zipper pull side down, and then I'm going to take my bottom inside or bottom front lining fabric, and I'm going to lay that right side down. So we've got the bottom front right side up, the zipper with the zipper pull side down, and the lining fabric right side down. And I'm going to clip all of these layers together. Okay. Now we're going to go back to the sewing machine. I've switched out my zipper foot, or I've switched out my 1/4" sewing machine foot to a zipper foot, and you're just going to run this edge of the zipper up against the zipper foot and sew all the way down the length of the zipper. Here you can really see how having an extra long zipper really helps, because my zipper pull is all the way out here, out of the way. I don't have to slide it back and then slide it the other way. It just makes it a lot easier. So now I'm going to fold back my lining fabric and finger press along here, and then I'm going to fold that under and finger press along here. You could use your iron, but you have to be very careful not to get your iron on top of your zipper. Okay, we're going to go back to the sewing machine, and we're going to switch out the zipper foot for our 1/4" foot. And I'm just going to sew a 1/4 inch away from the zipper all the way down. Alright, now we are going to do the same thing with our top fabric. So we'll lay our top fabric right side up, our zipper pull side down, our lining fabric right side down, and clip the layers together. Or pin. You could pin if you like. It might be a little tough to get the pins through the zipper though. Switch back to our zipper foot and repeat. Right, just like before, finger press the lining fabric away and finger press your patchwork away from the zipper. And the lining fabric kind of wants to flop back just because of this soft and stable here, so it may help when you're doing the next part to actually clip this fabric out of the way. I'm just pulling the fabric even with the edge of the soft and stable and clipping it. I'm going to switch back to my 1/4 inch foot. And I'm going to sew 1/4 inch away from the patchwork along the zipper. Now I'm going to take my lining fabric and I'm going to fold our soft and stable and our patchwork out of the way and lay the lining fabric down right side up. Then I'm going to take the back lining fabric and lay it right on top. And I'm going to pin. And now I'm going to sew 1/4 inch away from the edge across the top, but we want to leave about a 3 or 4 inch wide opening in the middle for us to turn our project bag inside out from. All right. Now we're going to fold our lining up completely out of the way, and I'm just going to clip it in place, flip it over to the front side of our project bag, and I'm going to take our back and we're going to place it right sides together. And I'm going to clip it across the bottom here. And we're going to sew 1/4 inch away from the edge all the way across. Alright, now we've got our top and bottom sewn together. I probably should have paid closer attention to make sure my seams matched up, but it's not far enough off that I'm going to redo it. So now we're going to fold our lining back down, except we want to keep the top edge of the lining and our front and our back. We're going to line all of those up together and clip. And then I'm going to sew 1/4 inch away from the edge all the way down. Okay, so now you should have a tube with your front and your back right sides together and with your lining right sides together. The next step is very important. We're going to take our zipper pull and we want to move it at least 2/3 of the way across. That way you give yourself plenty of room for turning. Then I'm going to clip along these edges and we're going to sew 1/4 inch away from the edge down both sides. Now we can cut off our zipper tails. Just don't use your fabric scissors. And we can also take these corners and cut closer to the stitching. Not all the way to the stitching. I like to cut across the points of the stitches. That way you just have less bulk in your corners, and you can get a nice sharp point. Alright, now we're going to reach in through that gap in the lining and reach in through our open zipper and just grab some of the front and pull it through. It's a bit of a wrestling match. And then take something, pencil, a knitting needle. I'm using my scissors, which probably isn't a good idea. To push your corners out. Now for the top corners, just take your time. Alright. Look at your edges, make sure you don't have any spots that you didn't catch the fabric. Take a look at your seams on your lining to make sure you caught all of the fabric. And if it looks good, then at this point we're going to pull it inside out again. I know you just worked so hard turning it right side out, but we need to take this opening and fold those edges in. This right here is probably the most fiddly part. I'm going to pin them. You could ladder stitch this closed by hand if you want, or what I consider the lazy way, which really I just want to get to stitching on cross stitch, not hand stitching my project bag closed. I'm just going to use my sewing machine and sew as close to that edge as I possibly can get. It's going to be on the inside of the bag anyway, so you will be the only person who ever knows about it. See how I've stitched close to that edge? Hopefully you can see it. Now I'm just going to turn this right side out again. Readjust my corners. As a final step, I'm just going to take my iron and press these sides or the edges. I'm making sure to stay away from my zipper. I don't know that the zipper would melt, but I don't want to take any chances either. So now I've got a perfect little project bag. And this size bag is great for those smaller patterns. So a paper chart that's an 8.5 by 11 folded in half will fit perfectly in here. A cross-stitch clutch just barely fits in the small one. It's a little snug. But your clutch, your pattern, and your fabric. This is also great in a larger project bag, so maybe you want to make the large size project bag and then make a small size project bag to go inside to hold all your thread if you're working on a really large project. The clutch is easier to get out of the medium-sized project bag, so if that's what you intend to use it for, I suggest making the medium-sized bag. But I just wanted to give you a variety of options with the pattern so you can make whatever suits your needs. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoy sewing together your patchwork project bags. And now you have the tools to create a project bag to match every single project you have. If you take a look at the patchwork cross-stitch clutch pattern, you can use some of your extra squares if you used a charm pack to make a matching clutch. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at starlightstitchingco@outlook.com, or message me on Instagram at starlightstitchingco, or send me a conversation on Etsy, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you!